It's your first podcast ever, so we feel so honored at the Flip Your Script podcast.
Yeah, it's my first podcast I've ever done. So it's something new for me, but I am always up for new things. So I'm
Clearly,
excited.
that is your life, up for new things. But you spent 17 years in an
Yeah.
environment and a community that was very different from the one most people grow up in and are aware of. So things I've been watching your TikTok, things like a coffee maker, electricity, TV, computer, podcast, all these things, you didn't know they existed. Is that right? Or did you know they existed, but you just didn't have access?
Yeah. We didn't know they existed growing up. So we were just sheltered from it growing up. We didn't know like what's a smartphone, right? We didn't know what a smartphone is or a electricity or a light switch or any type of stuff like that. Was just very sheltered from us. But I do also come from one of the most conservative communities. So there are Amish communities out there who do know what that is, but not really in Minnesota. Minnesota is all really older Amish communities. That would be more out in Ohio and Pennsylvania. They have Amish communities out there that have much. We were always so jealous of them because they got like the front on the buggy, they got the wind can't blow in. We couldn't have that, right? So there's, I would say, between 8 and 10,000 different churches, and every church has a different set of rules.
So yours was one of the most conservative, and you were jealous of the people with the fancier buggies, but you had never been on an airplane to go see people with fancier buggies. You
Right.
heard about them?
Yeah. Well, we heard about them, and then there's different tiers of communities in Minnesota as well. But we were one of the more strict ones. For example, some of them have a triangle on the back of their buggy, which we saw is just wild. If we could have a triangle, like it's colorful, it's kind of cool. We thought that would be cool, but that was not an option in our house.
So when you said, to your parents, hey, how come we don't get a triangle on the back of our buggy? What did they tell you the reason was?
So interesting question. They always, and I was my mom's biggest problem for sure. I asked probably more questions than the other kids for sure. But her answer was always like, we don't have it because our parents didn't have it. Our grandparents didn't have it. And we have to honor our mother and our father. We have to honor our grandparents, etc. Which, I often disagree with her. I thought there's a way to, after I left, I especially came to this conclusion. There's a way to honor your father and mother without directly obeying them.
So basically her answer is, well, that's biblical, honor your father and mother.
Correct.
Her way of interpreting that is, we do what they did. Basically, we don't have a choice of where we were born, who we were born to. Whatever they did must be right. Therefore, you will smile and enjoy it too.
Correct. Yeah, very much.
So not a lot of room for curiosity in that. So you said you were your mother's biggest problem. How many siblings do you have, Eddie?
I have 9 older siblings. There's 10 of us all together. I am the youngest. I'm a twin, but I'm the youngest, which I found out years later because that type of stuff is never talked about. So one time, me and my twin brother are listening to my dad speaking with an English neighbor. So anybody English is somebody that's not Amish. That wears
so
English
I would
clothes.
be English.
You're
right?
English, yes.
Okay.
So my dad is talking to an Englisher and we're listening from behind. He doesn't know we're listening. So this English guy asks him, so who is older? Is Eddie older or is Eli older? And my dad told him. So that's how we found out.
You didn't know you were twins?
Never tell us.
You didn't.
We knew we were twins, but we were always curious who is older because this was when we were like 15 years old. Because we were taught like that the babies come out of the sky. So, but once you're 13, 14, 15 years old, you kind of put dots together, and then it's like, okay, we just naturally, I started learning like, yeah, the babies don't come out of the sky.
On
I have,
behalf of every woman listening, don't we wish that was how it happened? Don't we wish that the
yeah,
babies just fell into our arms?
yeah,
Yes,
wouldn't that
that
be
would be
easy?
amazing.
Yeah,
Wow. Wow, fascinating. So of the 10 of you, how many are still in the community?
two.
Two.
This last summer, four of them who are already married have left the Amish. So
And I want to be clear, we're not trying to make fun of, we aren't trying, and your mission is not to discredit, hurt the community. It's just to showcase this is a way of life, and you've chosen a
correct,
different way of life, because I don't want anyone thinking that we are anyway making fun of that lifestyle, but it is surprising. Just like it's
correct.
surprising for you to know how I grew up, it's surprising for me to hear how you grew up.
Yeah, I admire the Amish. I love the way of life. It wasn't the way of life I wanted to live. So the biggest problem I had with the Amish the last couple of years I was there was I did I thought, well, okay, if you guys want to live this life, that's awesome, but I don't want to live this life, and I don't want to be forced into living this life. So I have a lot of at I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I have a lot of respect for their way of life. It's a very unique. They live off the land. They don't go to the store. But it wasn't for me. It wasn't what I wanted for my life.
And isn't it interesting? I think just in general, it speaks to the wonder, right? That are just inside all of us, that you didn't know what was out there. You had a sense because you had the English neighbor, but you didn't really know. You just knew that like this isn't quite for me. There just has to be something else.
Yeah, there has to be something outside of this. And again, I didn't know what's outside of this. I didn't know how it's going to be to live outside of this, but I knew there was something other than this way of life. And I was curious to try it. We heard the airplanes at night. We seen them in the daytime going above us. Why can't we go on one of those? So there was just so many things I wanted, like traveling. There's more to the world than like Harmony, Minnesota, right? There's more, and I didn't know. I thought it's like we're one here, and then when I like, oh, there's all the oceans, there's different countries, there's different, because we weren't taught history or science or any of that stuff in school. So it was a lot of stuff to learn, but it was stuff that I was really interested in and wanted to learn. So I think that's part of also what helped me just wanting to leave and what motivated me to ultimately leave.
So did your parents not know about the rest of the world, or did they just choose to shelter you from it?
They know about it. They choose to shelter you from it. In school, it's not an accident that they don't have history books. It's not an accident they don't have science. They don't want you questioning stuff too much, because if I would have had history and science books in school by eighth grade, I would have had so many questions from my mom. Why are there all these different religions? Why are we a part of this one? I wonder what that one is. Can we go? So it would have been so many different questions. I feel like it's so restricted. Some of it is bad. Some of it is good. Like the way I grew up, no iPad, no phone. We played with each other growing up. Now, like you see, kids that are just anxious and they're depressed. They have anxiety, like because they have access to all this stuff, and then they start comparing, which can to be unhealthy. And we never had any of that. So like that's a good part of it. But then there's also a part where I just wanted to learn. I wanted to experience what else is in life, and that's like no, this is what life is, and this is the only way we're gonna live.